Hi, everybody, and welcome to the RHAP B&B for week 4 of Survivor 50. My name is Mike Bloom. It's a very star-studded week for Survivor. One celebrity enters, one leaves, speared like a large fish at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. And we are here to talk all about the surprising departure of Mike White, checking out quite early from Survivor 50, and the checking in of one of the titular fans who this game was apparently in the hands of, or at least the fish were in the case of this week. I'm so excited to welcome back Liana Boraas. We really had to wrangle you, but once you found out that we would get a concentrated 15-minute segment of Zach Brown fishing in the concert, you had to cancel all your plans.
That's what I voted for. Like, that's what I was like, you know what I want? The players that I've seen play for so many years that I have such an affinity for. No. Less of them. More of Zach Brown. Thank you very much. And they listened. I feel so heard.
That Liana, this is all for you. Thank you. You're welcome for making this all happen. But look, we are sort of talking about, I suppose, the reality TV equivalent would be in Drag Race Untucked when the guest judge shows up to just kind of derail all the drama that is happening. And this man knows exactly the language I am speaking because he is one of the most preeminent YouTubers out there covering RuPaul's Drag Race. But people may not know this. He is a Survivor fan as well. So I am so ecstatic to welcome to the main stage here, the Drag Detective, also known as Derek.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Liana. Yeah. I know I voted for Charlie XCX to be on the island, but I guess my vote didn't go.
Could have been a Brat Spring.
That would have been a wild if the Jeff is like, one celebrity is going to the island. Vote who it is.
Wait, we can all do cocaine on the island, which is such a callback anyway. Like, it comes full circle. We are bumping it. Let's go, Jeff.
Who on season 50 do you think is most likely to be listening to Brat?
Oh,
yeah. Oh, that's good. I feel like Camilla.
Yes.
Right, has to be the top of the list.
Could be Camilla. Could be Tiffany. Maybe Tiffany.
See, I see Angelina being.
Angelina. Very Brat.
Very, very Brat. But Derek, I'm so excited to have you here because, like, to fully pull back the curtain a little bit, I randomly a couple of years ago found my way into like I want to watch Drag Race YouTubers. Of course, we have great coverage here on RHAP, but like. I really love the show, but I want to find more people that really dig into the minutia. And I found your channel. I found Jack Fed. I found Runner Eye. That's like my holy trinity. A little bit of Black Boy on the side as well. So I've been following you for a while. So I am so happy to have you here. But I would love for you to divulge about your history with Survivor. Because again, obviously, that is not really your bread and butter in terms of what people know you for. But you are a dyed-in-the-wool fan of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Let me age myself, and by age I mean like I'm a little bit younger, but my first memory is watching Survivor. The first memory I can ever like go back to is watching Ethan Zahn win Africa with my mom. So Survivor has been with me since I had a consciousness.
That's
a long time.
Yeah, I mean that's Jeff is internally combusting. Without even knowing what's happening. Upon the mere mention of this, your first conceived memory is of Survivor. That is unbelievable. So have you been watching ever since? Did you take a break at all?
No, it was like a ritual. Like when it used to be on Thursday nights, me and my mom every single night would be watching, and then we moved to Wednesday nights. And like I remember going to college. And like leaving home for the first time, but I would still talk about Survivor with my mom. And that was like the one thing we would like really get to talk about. I will say I did skip season 43. That is the one season.
43? Why?
Yes.
Were you like
I was just busy. I was just like busy. And I'm like, oh, there's too much TV on, whatever. I'll watch it later. And then I was like, okay, I didn't miss much. It's fine. But yeah, I've seen every season, most of them at least twice. So,
well, the good news for you is no 43 representation on 50, so you do know everybody on the cast at least.
Exactly.
Well, then let's get your thought on this group of players. We're only 4 episodes through Survivor 50, though that still is like probably a little less than a third of the way through the season already. Yeah. What have your thoughts been so far? What were your expectations going into such a milestone season? Because listen, you certainly know your way around all-star seasons of reality TV and the expectations compared to the reality they're in. So what were your own expectations of the season?
Well, I think that I went in with really high expectations because Jeff kept saying it's in the hands of the fans. You're going to get to vote on stuff. And the last time we got to vote on stuff was Second Chance, which was like one of the best seasons. It's probably in my top 5. So I was like, I hope we get to vote on the cast. I hope we get to vote on all this stuff. And I will say, when the cast dropped, I wasn't like the most excited, but I was open to, being surprised. And I will say, I have thus far been very happily surprised by this cast.
Yeah. I totally echo that sentiment. I feel the exact same way. It's actually weird to think that, like, why was I complaining? Why was I upset? It's like, this is great. And, I think a lot of people, I think I've said this before about Colby, but it was like, like, do we really want to see Colby again? I'm loving it, right? Like, I'm really living for it. And it does make the season more difficult because you're going to lose somebody each week that you're really excited to see. But I would rather have that than, a cast that you're maybe not so jonesed about.
Well, and especially because there's so many surprises that are baked therein. Like, yes, when you have 3 people from the same season on a tribe, you think like maybe there's some baggage that's being brought in here, but that's going to be like a final 7 problem, not a final 17 problem. And we saw that come to fruition immediately with Christian turning on Mike. And listen, there's various reasons why it happened. Either, his preconceived notion of like, I'm the narrative warrior now, I'm the one that's picking up the pen, or him feeling a little shock that Mike would deign compare Emily Flippin to Gabby Pascuzzi. But to have some of those like past, I don't even know if demons is the right word, but between like that facet and then between this Charlie calling Rizzo his mortal enemy because of these spare comments that Rizzo was making, I think I was expecting people to bring their past into their present just based on the fact that some of these people have played so many times, but not in the ways that I certainly expected, considering like who is having one foot essentially back in the year that they initially played.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because Jeff, famously said, I don't know if we want to cast villains, but some of the most interesting storylines on the season so far and some of the best editing is like painting Aubrey in not a great light, painting Joe in not a great light. And it's like, that's what's really interesting about an all-star season is you don't know who's going to become friends and who's going to become enemies. And sometimes people who butt heads you weren't expecting, like a Genevieve and an Aubrey, two like mothers of the fandom. It's so interesting. And like, I'm eating up these rivalries.
Yeah, I think, rivalries. I think that's a really great way to put it. And we're starting to build so many more. We have Coach and Ozzy, even from the very first get-go of their little rivalry. I think conflict is just, well, first of all, it's a natural part of life. If, Survivor is some sort of human experiment, then you want to see the conflict. And it's also really entertaining. And whether it's one-sided, whether both parties know they're participating in a rivalry, regardless, it makes for really entertaining TV. And I think that we're seeing also the consequences of what that looks like in the strategic gameplay with what came from social relationships.
Yes. So all that being said, I think that this was probably the weakest of the 4 episodes. And listen, it's a high bar. I think, as you mentioned before, Derek, this has been a remarkably strong streak of episodes, have just been so much fun. And for what it's worth, the beginning and the end of the episode were so incredible. Like, I kind of feel bad that people kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater, that this is apparently the lowest rated episode on IMDb ever, because like the last half hour is incredible television. Just whenever we go to that Vatu tribe, it is fantastic TV from the moment they hit the beach to the moment that Mike White walks out of tribal council and Ozzy basically tells Christian, like, nope, you're not going to do any damage control with me. The damage is already done. But unfortunately, I think the connotation around this episode, both now and assumingly in the future, is going to be the presence, extended especially, of one Zach Brown. So, Derek, I want to get your reaction to this episode as it was airing, and especially in retrospect. Are you as down on this episode as seemingly a lot of people are right now?
Well, the way that I come at Survivors with a very queer perspective. The people I talk about Survivor with, you mentioned Jack Fed and Runner Eye, we talk Survivor all the time. The people I'm talking with Survivor about are gay. I'm gay. So I'm coming at this very queer. And I feel like Jeff loves to, do whatever for the fans. But I feel like a lot of the times it's for the Facebook moms. You know, we know there's like the Facebook mom side of the fandom, and then there's like the super reality TV, a lot of queer people, you know, side of the fandom. And I would say a lot of the stuff that's happened in the last couple of years has been like to appease the Facebook moms. So I'm sure these Facebook moms that are listening to their country music stations are loving seeing Zac Brown on. But I think we're also hearing from a large portion of the fandom that this is not what they want on their Survivor. And that's kind of what I was just thinking the whole time. I'm just like, why? Like, you know, a lot of people had to like, okay, this decision. A lot of people had to like, you know, make it happen. And I don't know who it's for, unless you are a fan of Zac Brown, who, let's be honest, is not like the #1 country star right now. Like, there's plenty, if they wanted to find a country person, there's plenty of other people in country music that are popular right now.
Hell, one of them is a Survivor alum in the form of
Chase
Rice.
Rice. Come on. I don't know who this is for. I really don't know who it's for. And clearly it's not for many of the people watching, as we've seen with the IMDb ratings.
Right. I mean, yeah, there's very clearly been a negative reaction, I think, from a lot of circles to the episode. I think for me, like, even outside of it being Zac Brown, which, by the way, I knew him more because he is on this Avicii song Broken Arrows as an uncredited vocalist, and like that's how I knew who he was. I actually didn't know him from his country music.
That'd be so funny if you were on that beach, so you're like freaking out via D. You're like, I love when you had that uncredited feature on that Avicii song.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, the what?
Yeah, you're sitting at the sanctuary, like, play the Avicii song.
Yeah, play Broken Arrows. So, but anyway, outside of the Zac Brown, like as him specifically as a person, right? Like, let's say it was Billie Eilish. Okay, let's say it's the Zac Brown Boomerang Idol, and now Billie Eilish is actually out catching fish or something. I don't know what Billie Eilish would be doing, but regardless, like, I think independent of who it is, on top, like, it's absurd regardless, right? Because it's like, so what, and I really tried to pay attention despite watching on 2X to the segment, which was like, okay, what am I as the audience supposed to take away from this? And I think it is supposed to be, this is my interpretation, again, about like celebrating Survivor and celebrating the fans, I guess. Yeah. I think that's what I was supposed to take away from it, but honestly, I'm not 100% sure.
I mean, yeah, I think to a certain aspect, having Zac Brown on there is a bit of this masturbatory facet of like, hey, we have famous fans. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool that these people also watch the show?
Well, look, why?
But I think
who cares?
Also, I mean, you also have to wonder in retrospect, like, did Zac Brown and his team agree to do this in exchange for like, yeah, we're going to play a couple songs and like, can you feature said songs? That's really, I think, the issue that I had, that assuming you both had, that a lot of people had, was that if you are a Zac Brown devotee or not, this was way too long. We spent a lot of time about Zac Brown talking about why he loves spearfishing, and that is all well and good. I love how this serves as a source of therapy for him, an escape, a way for him to remember the sensation that we are just living on a blue marble hurtling through the universe, and that what matters at the end of the day, I won't worry about it, to quote his new hit song that everyone's singing along to at home. But we don't necessarily need that at the expense of what is happening. I think the reward probably was really cool. Like, I buy the emotional reactions from these players because this is a really unique experience. Yes, they've watched movies before, but like, they haven't had people come and fish for them and perform a concert in the way that Zac Brown did. But it just seems so discrepant. Let's reverse things here. Let's put ourselves in Zac Brown's boots here. Let's say you're a Zac Brown fan and you attended his concert and you were so excited for this yet another sold out Fenway Park concert. And so you sit down and Zac Brown plays a bunch of, great songs, new classics, etc. And then about a third of the way through, he says, now y'all might not know this, but I'm a big fan of the show Survivor. And so this is Colby and Ozzy talking about why they love spearfishing. And then it cuts to the screen and they show for uninterrupted a half hour basically of footage of them spearfishing, or them. Actually, you know what? It'd be more so than being like, who loves country music? D. And so D's going to sit there and talk about why specifically she loves country music instead of watching Zac Brown do the country music. And then it transitions to an episode of Survivor. They show 10 minutes of an episode, and it's like, I don't know if the audience came for this necessarily, And B, what does this have to do with anything?
Mhm.
So I do think sometimes we make a bit of a mountain out of a molehill of like, yes, it was only 10 minutes out of a 90-minute episode, but it did sort of feel almost representative of something larger as to, as you mentioned, Liana, who is this for and why are we dedicating so much time to this?
Well, and
Mhm.
like, some of the other guests that they've teased, like, I understand why Mr. Beast is there. Obviously, he's been very inspired by Survivor with his channel, and they want to appeal to the younger demographic, and he's like the number one for the younger demographic. I get why Mr. Beast is here. I get why like Jimmy Fallon, him and Jeff are friends, but like Zach Brown just feels like the most random draw a name out of a hat of like 500 celebrities and then just invite them.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely some co-promotion stuff. I think, of course, Mike, what you mentioned about the songs, but also, I don't know if you guys noticed the slow zoom in on his wine at the sanctuary. So I don't know if you guys know, Zach Brown's got some wine, trying to sell a little bit of that. Nobody commented about the wine, I will say.
I will say, maybe a little bit of a hot take. Again, as much pushback as there might be here, I think if you are a brand, be it a person, a company, etc., you should actually be jockeying to become a reward on Survivor.
Yes.
Because this is the ultimate captive audience. You had a grown-ass woman throw a shit fit about not getting Applebee's. Do you know how many people were jonesing for Applebee's in the immediate aftermath of that moment and the weeks thereafter? This is one of the best forms of free advertising. Liana, I'm surprised we did not get segments from Chrissy being like, wow, this Zach Brown wine is quite scrumptious. Because it's just, they haven't drank anything in days. They're going to love any wine that's put in front of them.
Oh, yeah. When you're hungry, everything tastes great. So it just makes total sense to put your food rewards on Survivor. So yeah, I was surprised by that. Maybe it wasn't that good, that even starving people don't like it, but I don't know.
My thing is, if I'm starving for days and days and days, I don't want wine. No. I feel like that would just make me feel so gross.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
And beer, I'm like, I don't want all that fizz in my stomach when I haven't had anything in there for like 2 weeks.
I feel like I would fall asleep during Zach Brown's concert if I had any of that wine and beer, which would feel probably incredibly rude to him.
Well, it was so calming and relaxing that you fell asleep, right?
Like a lullaby.
Like a lullaby. Exactly, Mike.
Well, yeah, you got to sit in comfy chairs. Like, you have Genevieve just sitting in the hammock. Like, I would have conked the F out. He's singing, like, I don't worry about it. And you're just hearing, like...
You gotta like turn your mic off.
Exactly. Well, let's get around the middle of this episode, I should say, to again talk about the delicious bread that surrounded this sandwich. Wait, no, please go ahead.
Hold on. Actually, one other thing I wrote down, because what really made me laugh was before Jeff brought out Zach Brown, Aubrey, he's like, we brought out somebody very special who loves it. And Aubrey goes, "Aw," like it's a Make-A-Wish kid or something like that. And then it was Zach Brown. So anyway, I just thought that was so funny. Like, I don't know, because Aubrey's reaction to, Zach Brown, Zach Brown, like that's not, no.
I mean, it is interesting. We have had very, select, but in the past, like there was a Make-A-Wish kid who like designed the challenge that accidentally broke Missy's leg in Survivor San Juan del Sur. So like there would be a non-zero chance. It's like in the hands of the fans, like here's this very special fan who's coming out to visit you all.
And dare I say, I'd prefer that. I would prefer that.
Now, what if that kid played a concert at the sanctuary? Would you approve of that?
On the recorder, like it's third grade? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, here's a little ditty called Hot Cross Buns. Well, let's talk about someone who was feeling quite cross in his exit press here. Let's talk about the downfall of Mike White.
Oh, this one hurt, guys. This one hurt.
Yeah, give me your thoughts on this, Derek, because this came really out of nowhere for Christian to just sort of wake up in the middle of the day and choose violence and be like, all right, it's time to not only take out this guy, but to leave half of the tribe blindsided as I do so.
This was such an interesting dynamic on this tribe because so many people are coming in with different like motivations and like, I want this person gone. I want this person gone. And unlike on a regular season where this early, you might just like, it might be smarter to just, okay, I'll take a back seat. It's fine. These players are playing. And so, I mean, I knew going in that Mike let's be real, was not going to win, because who's going to, give $1 million to someone who already has $1 million? And I think he knew that. So I just wanted him there for as long as possible, because he's such a good confessionalist. He's so funny. Now he's ripped. It's like, what more could you want from this man? He's an icon. So I was sad to see him go this early, but he definitely was playing hard. And maybe it's because he felt like he didn't have anything to lose. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It was interesting because, we got so much a buildup over the David Goliath 3 and that relationship. And so to have it fall apart so quickly, like I assumed they were going to turn on each other. I did not assume that it would happen so quickly. And I think to see the catalyzing event for that seemingly be, or at least the way that the show was edited, that conversation between Mike and Christian, where Christian feels like, man, this guy is so good at being emotionally manipulative, how he, sees it, in convincing him in what to do, saying the right things, doing the right things. And then it certainly doesn't help Mike that at Tribal Council, he's talking about how that's his skill that he's worked on for so many years.
I'm a con man.
Exactly. Yeah, basically.
I'm selling you nothing. I'm selling you an idea.
But vote with me.
Yeah, exactly. Not something you want to hear right before you vote. So yeah, I thought that was very interesting. And I don't know if it was necessarily the right move from Christian from a strategic perspective, but I can certainly understand the motivation of him wanting to basically say, look, this man is a threat. I want to think my own thoughts. I don't want to think Mike's thoughts. Let's get Mike out of the game.
Yeah, I wonder if part of it is due to this resignation that Ozzy had at the beginning of the episode, being like, yeah, I'm on the disaster tribe, R&I. We're going to just keep going back to Tribal Council. And so if everyone has kind of resigned themselves to that fate, then it becomes obviously voting less on strength and more on loyalty. And I wonder if Christian was seeing how well connected Mike was, right? As he espouses at the beginning of the episode, where he has the David versus Goliath 3, he has this connection with Ozzy. And it's this idea of like, he cannot get momentum in this game, because once he does, if he makes it to the merge and he makes it to the jury, that's when he gets lethal. That's when he wakes up. That's when he took me out. And so I think it's a lot of preemptive striking. The question is, was this too preemptive? But I also wonder if another interesting thing about Christian's game in general, and this is something he talked about a lot in David versus Goliath specifically, is that he wants to create entropy in the game. He specifically used that term. He wants to create a chaotic environment because he feels like he is ordered enough of a thinker that he can sort of emerge from the top and be able to put a bunch of pieces together into something somewhat legible. And so I also wonder if he wants to purposely destabilize the tribe, right? Because again, this was not an all-on-one vote. This was 3-2-1. Ozzy was out of the loop, very angrily so. Angelina, obviously out of the loop. And I wouldn't even say that like Christian and Stephanie and Emily are really locked in. I don't think Stephanie really cares about working with the two of them. She was just happy her name wasn't written down. So I think that it might be a way for Christian to purposely create as messy of an environment as possible, because he feels like that's where he thrives the most.
I feel like what I was missing personally from this episode was more of Stephanie's perspective, because I feel like her game keeps getting thrown in all these directions, but we don't necessarily hear from her like what she's doing to like bounce back, or like why she decides to go with this person versus this person. Like, I really just want to know her thoughts, and I feel like we know everyone's thoughts on this tribe but Stephanie.
Yeah, I mean, something that unfortunately served as the nail in Mike's coffin, and the reason why also maybe Christian decided to get rid of Mike here, is because Stephanie had a very good reason to get rid of him, considering that Mike White, if you recall, sat down last episode and looked Stephanie in the eye and said, yeah, I'm probably going to vote you out. I'm sorry. And granted, yes, he does vote out Q in the end, but that's certainly not something Stephanie can forget, that you are so trivial with our new dynamic that you would outright tell me that you're voting for me.
I mean, obviously that would be a beautiful reason to immediately get revenge and vote somebody out. And I think, we didn't see this in the episode, and I don't know if maybe she's just not saying these things, but from her, if I'm looking at things from her perspective, I would also further welcome a Mike White vote, because an Angelina vote, I think, does keep a little bit more of the status quo, even though you are breaking up the David versus Goliath trio, even though they're turning on themselves, I suppose. You do create a little bit more chaos, like knowing that Ozzy, assuming he's vocalized it to somebody other than the confessionals, he does want to be so close to Mike White. So now you're preventing that connection from happening. You're helping to keep that to yourself, which I think for Stephanie, chaos also probably helps her in addition to whatever Christian is trying to manufacture.
Yeah. It's almost like Angelina's becoming like a Karishma, where like we can
Mm.
always get rid of Karishma. Let's
Yeah.
let's make a move now, and then we'll always have Karishma to get rid of. And it's like, well, how long is Angelina
Mhm.
going to stay now when there's always another move?
Yeah, though I do wonder, there's a couple things unfortunately working against Angelina here. I think in the past, certainly the path of Survivor has been littered with half measures of like, here's this powerful duo. We took one out, but it's fine. We don't need to
Mhm.
deal with the other one. But also they keep bringing up like how weak Angelina is in challenges, for example. And so maybe there might be a contingency that's like, especially from Christian's perspective, right? Like, yeah, Ozzy is pissed, but I think Angelina is probably more internally incensed. And so he's like,
Mm.
let me just make sure that doesn't stick around to bite me in the ass, as opposed to like, I at least have a working relationship with Ozzy, or I can try to. And again, if this Vatu tribe wants to try to decide to try in challenges, like, then Angelina might be the person to snip. Though I guess, what this all comes down to is whether it should have been Mike or whether it should have been Emily. And Derek, I need to get your thoughts on all things financial analyst Emily Flippin, because maybe again, Christian loves mess, and Emily is essentially Pigpen from Peanuts at this point.
I feel like obviously love Emily so much, but I think we're forgetting that like the start of her first season was rough. Like she
Yeah.
was not in a good position, and it was because she put herself there. So the same kind of faux pas that we saw on her first season, we're seeing her make those same mistakes again. And I wonder if she will kind of fall back into, I mean, obviously she had like Caleb on her first season that was able to kind of like nurture her and like calm her down and maybe like get her into a better spot. But like, I don't think Christian's going to be as forgiving as like a Caleb on an all-star season. So honestly, I do think that keeping Emily makes sense because like people obviously don't trust her. I don't think people think that she's a reliable ally, but she's with Christian right now, and it doesn't look like she has many other options. So
Mhm.
whereas Mike, I think, is such more of like a wild card, and he is so good at the game, and he thinks things through so much that like he will work with Christian when it's convenient, and when it's not convenient, he will go to someone else. Whereas like Emily, I feel like latches onto people. We saw that on her first season, and we're seeing it on this season as well.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting to describe Mike as a wild card, because that's how I was going to describe Emily. Like I know that Mike described her as, what was it? Hold on, I wrote it down. A cougar in the shape of a Ren Fair girl, which is why I'm so sad Mike White went home. That is an iconic line.
He's just so
Amazing.
good at coming up with these random, just beautiful lines of dialogue.
But like, I wouldn't even necessarily consider her I mean, maybe she is a cougar, but to me, she's just impulsive. And I
Yeah.
think that there's logic. Like, when you really look at the actions that she's taking, there's logic behind those decisions. Like, it's not completely out of the blue. For example, your closest ally whispers something in your ear, hey, so-and-so has an idol, okay, bye. Like, yeah, of course you're going to feel a type of way about that. Of course, you're going to want to feel like you need to find new allies. But I think she just acts so rashly and quickly that it doesn't really have time for her to really actually consider, like, oh yeah, that it would make sense for me to go look for new allies, or because Christian is on my beach, I could go just clarify with him what he meant by that, right? So she doesn't really kind of get to that second step. And I understand Mike White is dangerous, but man, for me personally, and Christian obviously has a higher tolerance for that entropy in Emily Entropy, maybe should be her new nickname. But I
Oh
just
yeah, that's a
don't.
real
rolls off the
Alliteration.
Let's just say
tongue.
like Zach Brown's wine just spikes the taste buds.
Please.
Yeah, I mean it's a very good point that I think also we need to remember the fact that Emily has different intentions on this tribe than Christian. She somehow wants to really work with Ozzy, despite the fact that again she targeted him so massively the first 2 rounds. But it's a new tribe, new day, and so she is making a lot of decisions in service of that relationship. Right? Christian goes to Emily and says, "Hey, Mike is targeting you. If you, me, and Stephanie vote together and we don't tell Ozzy, I think we'll be okay." Emily doesn't want to do that. I don't think she wants to leave Ozzy out of the loop. And so when Ozzy sits down, she immediately tells him. I think, unfortunately, where the lack of connection comes from there is like letting Christian know hey, can I tell Ozzy I have something good going with him? And I think it's because she maybe has this idea in her head, as she expressed last episode, of like, I'm not here to play Christian's game. And so she feels she doesn't necessarily need to communicate that. The result is we get, for the second time in 4 episodes, Christian doing his best Charlie Chaplin Marcel Marceau impression, as he's just like, I mean, he would kill it at charades. He is incredibly expressive, but that is also objectively a wild thing to do. Was Ozzy not feeling a light breeze behind him? Like, it feels like when you kind of feel like someone giving you the middle finger behind your back. Essentially, that's what Christian was kind of doing, I guess, to Emily instead of Ozzy.
Well, and I mean, I would love to hear your guys' opinion. I feel like Emily threw away her relationship with Angelina way too easily, because we haven't seen a ton of that dynamic, but she brought Angelina information that she desperately needed to have, that, you know, her original tribe was going to vote her out. And it seems to me like Angelina was so like appreciative of that. And you know that Angelina's on the outs. I mean, obviously she has her David versus Goliath people, but you're already working with Christian anyway. I'm like, why would you not nurture that relationship further? And it feels like she just kind of like threw Angelina to the wolves a little bit this week.
Well, and that's really interesting too, because then it's like, I get it if you're going to vote her out to appease Ozzy, why you wouldn't foster that relationship. But if you're not, and there's other options and you want to maintain that relationship, especially as the tribe gets smaller and smaller, and they don't know if there's going to be another swap. They don't know if there's going to be any other switch ups. So, you know, each of those relationships really start to matter as the tribe numbers dwindle.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's something that I think needs to just be incorporated as well to also relationships that exist outside of this tribe. You know, I don't know if they assume there's another swap coming along, but again, I think one of the reasons why Christian targets Mike is because he had these connections that were existing on the tribe. And so you also need to think about, okay, who are people that are likely to get their hands into this game? Yeah, we're at like 16 or 17 players right now, but who knows when the hell we're merging. And so you also need to sort of focus on that facet of the game, because as Christian himself has experienced, if you get your name on people's mouths in the beginning of the merge, it is very tough to shake that for the entirety of the game. And so again, I really do feel like, and part of the reason why Mike has, I think, been responding the way he certainly has in his interviews is because I think he felt like, I don't know if he wanted to take Christian to the end, but he certainly felt that would be like a final 7 or 6 problem, not a final 16 or 17 problem.
Well, I mean, Mike, do you want to comment a little bit about that? Because I do think that Mike has had a very specific perspective about the move.
Oh, yeah. He's got sour grapes that you could stomp to make a wine that would rival Zach Brown's. Yeah, I mean, he has been feeling a certain way about Christian that has been expressed to both me and many other outlets over the course of this past week. And it's really rooted in like a few pillars. I mean, I think Mike does feel very betrayed because he did feel Christian was a friend. Angelina has acknowledged that, like, of the David versus Goliath trio, it's like George and Elaine in Seinfeld. Like, her and Christian never really hung out together. Mike was always the connector. And Christian, you know, Mike felt like Christian was always a nice friend of his. Christian voted for him to win. The two of them stayed friendly. And when Christian happened to be at Thailand during the White Lotus season 3, he texted Mike being like, hey, can I make a cameo appearance? Mike said, yeah, sure. Come on, come hang out for a day. Glad that he cashed that opportunity in now, because that ain't happening anytime soon. And it then led to just this absolute dissolution, assumingly, of their relationship. Mike has said that the two of them have not spoken basically since that moment, since Mike was voted out. Basically, the last words he heard Christian say were through that hug as he walked out absolutely aghast at what had happened. I also think something, though, that has gone unremarked in a lot of discourse about this is the fact that Christian has this child. I feel like I honestly feel that Mike White feels very hurt that Christian did not tell him ahead of time. Like, I think it honestly is a thing of, yes, it was 6 weeks ago, but I do think Mike has a certain perspective of like, if I was really your friend, you would have told me this. I don't know why you didn't tell me about this.
Yeah. I'm wondering if, because I mean, we're seeing Christian played pretty hard in David versus Goliath, but I feel like he's had to play even harder here because he's gone to tribal almost every single episode. And
he has every single episode. Yeah.
So it's like, you know, you come in with a bag of tricks and he's having to use all of his tricks right off the bat. And I feel like he might be overplaying, but I also sympathize because like you kind of have to overplay if you're going to tribal every single episode.
Yeah, well, and I mean, also, if outside of just Mike White is a convincing human being, you start to look at the numbers, and then it's like, ooh, what if Ozzy sides with with Angelina and with that Mike Ozzy Angelina group, right? Then that's 3 against Stephanie and Christian, and now Christian all of a sudden is on the outs, right? So, and yeah, you're pulling in a lot of that baggage, you're pulling in a lot of that. But I mean, to my understanding, Mike didn't really tell, or Christian didn't really tell anybody about his child, right?
No, he did not. But also, Christian's not friend. I mean, Christian is certainly close with Emily, but I do think, again, for Mike, this is a relationship that has spanned 7, 8 years. He certainly, I think, had felt. I think he had made assumptions about the way he and Christian would have interacted in this game. Of like, again, I don't think he expected the two of them to be sitting in the final 3, but I don't think he expected for Christian to basically turn on him so soon. There's also Mike has been on record, and this is not even about Survivor 50. He told me this in the preseason that he knows in returning player seasons that like it's not exactly as authentic. People are now more comfortable in front of the camera, and they especially know like what makes good TV. And so maybe things do feel like a little bit more, okay, you're not exactly acting like your real self. You're acting like an exaggerated version. And so Mike certainly has heard those accusations towards Christian. He told me that one of the reasons why he didn't really clock Christian doing anything that could be an ulterior motive is because he's like, yeah, Christian's a little hammy. So I thought like, oh, well, he trips over himself and he says these wild things. So clearly he's just doing it to the cameras instead of actually taking me out, which like it's kind of a brilliant smokescreen by Christian, but I think maybe serves into Mike's larger theory about how, from his perspective, right, ironically, the man who is an Emmy-winning scripted television superstar wants to deal with the more unscripted versions of these characters instead of making it feel like more of a manufactured personality.
Well, and with these, all-star seasons, obviously pre-gaming is a huge aspect, and I'm sure that Mike and Christian had conversations.
Yeah, Mike had told me that basically the only people he pre-gamed with were on that Vatu tribe. It was him, Emily, him, Angelina, Christian, and Ozzy. Those were the only people that Mike talked to before the season.
That's rough.
Because a lot of people put so much weight into those pregame, chats.
Yeah.
And, some of them really matter, some of them don't. But especially because he's already friends with Christian, I'm sure that those pregame chats made him feel really, really secure in that relationship. And so for things to go sour as quickly as they did, I can understand why Mike is upset. But I also think I understand why Christian made the move.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. And that's what's beautiful. That's why I love Survivor so much is like, even if I personally maybe didn't agree with a certain move, I can still understand the logic behind somebody doing it. From Mike's perspective, the argument to Christian, I mean, maybe the Gabby stuff didn't exactly work, but like Emily is absolutely a wild card. Like, that's a good enough argument in of itself. Like, do you want to play with somebody who's sure, yes, I've stabbed you in the back, but we have 24 people to get through or whatever. Like, like I'm here with you. We've got this group. Let's make this solid. Versus Wildcard McGee over there, who's like doing God knows what. So like, I get Mike's perspective. And I think that that's just always so interesting. It's so tough because I don't want to lose Emily and I don't want to lose Angelina. I don't want to lose Mike. So, it's the way that the cards fall. And I think having the opportunity to take a step back, look at it holistically, I think we can appreciate it. Plus we've got some off-season joy or after season joy. So I like that as well.
Yeah, I think two things can be true. That, Mike feels incredibly hurt in this moment. And that this is also kind of what comes with the territory with returning player seasons, especially if you are playing alongside somebody that you have built a friendship with, is sometimes the real life bonds that you make and the real life aspects of the game, like two battering rams, absolutely collide with one another. It's something we saw all the way back with Boston Rob and Lex.
Literally what I was thinking of, Taylor's all the time.
Yep. Exactly. And so it's unfortunate that Mike had to experience this, and like it sucks that it does feel like a years-long friendship is now suddenly over one thing that happened in the game. At the same time, this is what happens in these types of things. These are the stakes that are involved, and that's partially kind of what makes the game so invigorating, is having your heart torn between, well, Mike is a friend of mine, but it feels best for my game to take him out. How do I personally reconcile that? And how does Mike, subsequently, all these months later, still try to reconcile that?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
a perspective I was trying to think of is like, do you think that Christian was worried about sending Emily home because of what that might make Rick think? If when they were to come back at like a swap or a merge, like, do you think that
Mm-hmm.
he was worried about that kind of relationship and like damaging two relationships with one move?
That's a good point. Yeah, because when he left the tribe, the visual was okay. There's a locked-in four of Christian,
Mm-hmm.
Emily, Ozzy. I mean, sorry, Christian, Emily, Rick, and Sari. And now, if you come to the mat and says Emily voted out the last tribal council, Sari and Rick are looking right at Christian, and they're also not looking right at Christian. They're also looking at Christian, Mike, and Angelina. And what message does that
Mm-hmm.
send? Oh, he picked his previous tribe mates over the ones he actually started the game with. Maybe that means I can't work with him
Mm-hmm.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and another thing too, like not to talk about too much out of the actual season, but like Emily and Christian do play games together frequently. So, they're interacting in maybe a more regular basis, even though Mike White and Christian have had a longer friendship and a longer relationship. It just the nature of it might look different. So there's all of the relationships to consider, plus all the optics, as you guys are mentioning. It's a lot that factors into a decision.
Yeah. I mean, the Aussie perspective is also something I'm really intrigued by. I don't know why Christian felt like he couldn't tell him. I guess maybe it's okay if Ozzy is told, then he tips off Mike and Mike
Yeah.
plays his shot in the dark. Because otherwise, I mean, listen, again, if you talk about emotional expense to the credit of great TV, pissed off Ozzy, maybe a hot take, is my favorite form of Ozzy. I
good.
love whenever he is incensed. It has unfortunately happened many times in Survivor history. Look at the final tribal council in Micronesia. Look at the final tribal council in South Pacific. Look at even when Elise is voted out in South Pacific and he openly declares to his tribe, I'm what you call now a free agent. Like, this man wears his heart on his lack of sleeves. And I think that is going to continue. As much as Ozzy feels like he is playing this brand new game and being this brand new person, what's fun about it is that it's a little like what happened with Coach at the Fight for Supplies, where it's like, no, there's this facet of Ozzy that he's never going to be able to tamp down. Like, Oscar can come to the fray, but this is 100% Ozzy. And I cannot wait to see how he's going to react to all this at the beginning of next episode.
Oh, big same.
Because I feel like, I mean, I don't want to put words in your guys' mouth, but I feel like for a lot of Survivor fans, we saw Ozzy and we were like, after Game Changers, we're like, do we need another Ozzy run? But the way he has completely changed my mind from, bringing out the Oscar persona in the premiere to like, now it feels like without Sari as like a foil to him, he's kind of falling back into his old ways where it's like, keep the tribe strong. And, I just feel like he's such a main character this season, and in a way that I was not expecting, but I'm absolutely living for.
Yeah, it's certainly so interesting to watch. And I think having such a long gap between having seen him last as well, I think certainly adds much more intrigue to the situation as you see what's the same, what's different, and how he's interacting in this new environment.
Yeah, and I mean, again, he also was possessing a little bit of craftiness at the beginning of this episode. The reason why he wanted to target Angelina was specifically to get close to Mike. I think that it does make sense, especially given the fact that Ozzy and Mike do have some sort of a connection there, that he would attempt to do this. I mean, this also from his perspective, again, would be a little bit like having his cake and eating it too, of like, he's not really connected with Angelina. Yes, they're not actively trying to win challenges, but she may be one of the weakest performers. And also, it allows not only this David versus Goliath trio to be broken up to make sure that like Christian doesn't flip over to the other side instead of him and Emily, but allows him to get closer to Mike in the process. Again, this all makes sense from Ozzy's perspective, which I think is what makes him so angry. It's like, no, I was doing everything so right, and then this guy comes in and blows everything up.
And to think they could have just voted out Angelina. Like, that group of four still could have done that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
I do, before we move on here, want to talk about one of the segments that started off the episode. Can we talk about Survivor 50's Got Talent here? Because listen, I'd be remiss not to bring up the opportunity. We are talking with somebody who not only has adjudicated a bunch of Drag Race talent shows, but has hosted his own talent shows as well. So, Derek, I need to get your thoughts. Did you agree with the winner of this week's challenge? Did you think that Rizzo should have won given the competition around him?
So if we're talking about just raw talent, it was a great impression of Mickey Mouse. But if we're talking about creativity, originality, we've seen it, and we've seen it done better. But I think, the reenacted, fight between Charlie and Jonathan, that took creativity. They had to plot it out. They had to choreograph it. They had to make sure that they weren't actually hurting each other. And by hurting each other, I mean Jonathan beating the crap out of Charlie. So I would personally give the win for this challenge to Charlie and Jonathan.
I think we can all agree Devon's came last. No offense, juggling, it requires coordination. It is absolutely a skill. At least what they showed on television did not look particularly impressive.
Do you think he got multiple chances, or do you think that was it? That he juggled for all of 50 seconds and he was done?
Dee ran that panel like the Navy. She's like, you're gone. You're out. Next.
Next. I loved Camilla. Poor sweet Camilla having 0 confessionals except for the one about
they are so we don't want to talk to you about the game, but we want to talk to you about the most random scene in the episode that doesn't really mean anything to the narrative. That's what we want to talk to you about.
It was such a good confessional though, because it was yeah, I haven't heard Mickey Mouse since I was 3, but that was pretty good, except for Devon's. Devon's was horrible. It's basically the energy of the confessional is a blast.
Yeah, I will say that I do think the win was a little bit unearned for Rizzo, because I would even question the character authenticity of Mickey Mouse, because I believe, and I've watched this multiple times, I believe when Rizzo launches into the high-pitched vernacular, he says, quote, "It's a me, Mickey Mouse." Sir.
Okay, well, see, maybe there's the creativity, because, mixing two characters together, I'm trying here. I'm sorry, Rizzo.
It's not Marioki Mouse. It's Mickey Mouse, okay?
He's wearing all red. Maybe he was gonna do Mario and then he got confused. They're not eating, Mike.
See, that's interesting. Could it be, as you mentioned, Liana, maybe he came in wanting to do a Mario impression, and then he starts and immediately bails, and he immediately it's me, Mickey Mouse. Yes, remember me. Also, it also could have been that, I don't know, maybe they feel like Mickey, it's skewing to the later days demographic that exists on this beach, where so is by far the younger person. So if he's making reference to modern day Mario, they might be like, I don't understand what that is. Give me something like Mickey Mouse, the guy that's been around for 100 years. Everybody knows Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, that's right. You kids and your Nintendos.
Also, I was dying because Charlie absolutely graduated from Jeff Probst's College of Similes and Metaphors. Because when he said, Rizzo might have won this talent show, but I'll never let him win the game after he didn't, vote for Sophie to win. I was like, you better, Charlie. You better pull this narrative together for yourself.
Oh my God.
I agree though. I would have given the win to Jonathan and Charlie, though. Talent is a very loose term, much like a lot of Survivor themes that existed in the late 30s, right? Of is it a talent to fake fight one another? I guess this falls in the realm of stunts. I do agree with you, Derek. I don't know if I was scripting this fight that I would have Jonathan win, because there is the image of this massive man sitting over Charlie, punching him in the face, that if one person turns 1 millimeter one way, someone could get medevaced and or someone could get removed from the game for physical violence.
Also, I want to see more of Sari and Rizzo, because I feel like it could be taking her back to Big Brother, with Corey, where Corey is just tell me about this. Tell me about Micronesia. So I feel that Rizzo would be giving the same energy and she would be so over it.
Yeah, that would be very funny. I'm sure he's doing that. That is definitely Rizzo vibes for sure.
Well, what's fun is that Sari, I believe she announces the winner, and she goes, "The winner is Riz God." I think there's a very legitimate chance that she has only called him Riz God since the two of them have shared the beach. I mean, I think there's also a little bit of nefarious purposes there of like, I want everyone to remember that you call yourself the man, the myth, the legend, RIZGOD, Riz God, that you're not some sort of like cute kid that does Mickey Mouse Clubhouse voices. No, sir. You pack a punch. You're the Riz God. But I also, or it could be that Sari just like does not want to do the courtesy of remembering his name. Just like, I only know you as the Riz God. When I came into this game, you're gonna be the Riz God for me.
That's so fair.
That's her name now.
All right. Well, we shall turn to a different name here, a notable one in the form of Mike White. Mike White, quite the wild card coming into this season. I'm not talking about his athletic regiment because I think as the biggest name, but someone who has not necessarily been a part of the community for years, there were a lot of question marks as to both how he would play and specifically how he would be perceived. So, Liana, how did you think Mike was going to do based on all that?
Okay, I did have Mike making the jury.
Okay.
I said that Mike, coming in hot off the success of White Lotus, the other cast members can't help but suck up a bit to Mike, maybe hoping for a cameo. And then I put one of these emojis where it's going, And then I wrote, this puts Mike in a good position on Kahlo, although he struggles to make any strong strategic connections. Come merge, Mike is missing his David versus Goliath bestie in Angelina and must rekindle his relationship with Christian. The two work together to orchestrate a cross-tribal alliance for the first few merge boots, but soon the paranoia of David versus Goliath comes flooding back, and Christian needs to get Mike before he can get him. Mike's closest ally was Coach, who hopes he put in enough work for a White Lotus cameo, and his enemy was Christian.
By the way, I believe that Mike has gone on record saying that a couple of survivors will show up in season 4, but I don't believe even they know that yet.
It'll be a surprise for everyone.
Yeah, Mike will be like, yeah, take a trip to France. No particular reason.
Reason why.
Well, Liana, I guess you and I are reading a similar script because we are quite on the same page here. I also had Mike making the jury. I said Mike will be immediately bombarded with questions on his tribe about the White Lotus. Despite him playing ball and answering their queries, some will be rankled by the idea of having to live at the Mike White meet and greet. Who would have thought I'd make a Drag Race reference when Derek was here, actually? Making him an easy early call-out target until a winning streak keeps him from tumbling off the metaphoric boat. Due to his extended tenure of safety, Mike will serve as the main narrator of the pre-merge. He'll invoke so many pop culture references in his confessionals that Aubrey will surreptitiously get a bad vibe from him, not particularly sure why. At the swap, Mike and Angelina will finally get the chance to reconnect. Unfortunately, they are seen as such a power couple that much like Ethan and Harper in Italy, they need to create trouble in paradise. Hope it was worth paying the licensing fees to get that one clip of Angelina's cameo on White Lotus, CBS. At the merge, Mike White makes his old school dreams come true by bringing together all of the older contestants, a chronology, not age, Mike, to get together and rule the game. But Christian is seeking his overall preseason purpose of looking to steal Mike White's pen and power, picks up the pen, writes down his name, and enacts his deep-seated revenge. Mike will also go out in the episode in which Mr. Beast appears on Survivor 50, and due to his residual anger, will write an influencer-type character on the White Lotus Season 4 who dies in the first 5 minutes.
Wait, I still want that, though.
It'll happen. It'll happen.
His closest ally was Angelina, and his enemy was, in the end, Christian.
You guys are pretty close. I like that
That's
you
crazy.
were close with the Aubrey thing, just with the wrong person that she, had the relationship with.
Yeah, that's so funny.
And it's for no reason other than Aubrey being like, I get the feeling someone else is making pop culture references in their confessionals, which we got this week when she mentioned Ricola.
Aubrey is like the wildest person to be on this season. I'm perplexed at Aubrey's gameplay right now.
Yeah, she doesn't seem very like joyful to be out there, poor thing. She's just trying to get away from the old folks' home.
She's like, I want a moment for myself, and they're like, oh, Aubrey, hey Diva, come back to camp.
Yeah, I am living for the rivalry between her and Genevieve.
Yes,
it is
so fun.
So much fun. That also, because of the fact that they haven't been to Tribal Council, it just keeps getting worse and worse. To the point where, like, if they don't go this episode, whenever we hit a merge, I think it's got to be one or the other is the first booted. Because I think they are immediately just going to gun for each other at the first opportunity. There's just been no opportunity. Though I guess if the information is communicated to them that, hey, Aubrey has an idol, maybe that would give them a little bit of pause. But I just think it is so much fun that there is like such open hostility between the two of them, stemming back from Aubrey looking Genevieve in the eye on day 2 and being like, yeah, I think you're too scary to work with. To when Genevieve is very, very consciously being like, hey, Aubrey, what you doing? We thought you got lost on the way back to camp. Mind if I join you? Go idol hunting? There's just so many like little petty shots at one another, both in
So good.
confessionals and in person, that I've been having a great time. And sort of like Charlie and Rizzo, this was one of the more unexpected rivalries to emerge from the season.
Yeah, they're having a diva off, and whoever loses and whoever wins, the audience will win. So I would love like a merge boot that's like very like Jeremy Collins versus Josh Wigler. That'd be iconic. Like who's on Team Genevieve? Who's on Team Aubrey?
Yeah.
Yes.
Derek, do you have any thoughts about the Billie Eilish boomerang idol now that we have seen all 3 incarnations of it?
You know, I like the idea. I think it's a really fun idea. I just feel bad that like Genevieve has found 2 idols now, but has 0 in her possession. Like, and I mean, I don't know what I would do. Obviously, we can all judge from home, knowing the full rules, and scope of it and stuff. But like, if I were on the island, I don't know what I would do. But I feel like Genevieve is not playing that correctly. Like, who's she sending it to?
Yeah. I mean, so obviously she finds one this episode, gives it to Rizzo.
Yes.
Which what was her logic again behind giving it to Rizzo?
So it was that he would feel so honored and so ecstatic by it that he would not realize that she gave it to him for the express reason of taking him out later on to get the idol back, which does make sense. As you mentioned, Derek, I think now the second, like, one for you, one for me. Ozzy, great. Let's build a bridge. You can have this idol, but I want this one to come back to me. Now, I'm not letting this opportunity slip through my head, so let me give it to somebody who would actually not play an idol and not see my betrayal coming. I'll give it to Rizzo.
Which is actually wild, because Rizzo, the king of not playing idols, if anybody's going to keep it until he gets voted out, like, it would be Rizzo.
That's wild, right? That she has no idea about it. Like, Rizzo saying, like, well, this is weird. This is deja vu all over again. But it's also interesting because, like, I feel like given the dynamics of that swap tribe, like Rizzo is actually not in a very good spot from an external perspective. So I feel like you would give it to him if you want the idol to be used, if you want him to be saved. If you don't know his body of work, besides the Mickey Mouse voice, there's a non-zero chance that this guy immediately plays the idol, and then it's gone for both of you, essentially.
Me, like, playing from my couch, I'm like, I would give it to Stephanie because she has such a good relationship with Stephanie that they could share it. But also, Stephanie's not in a great spot on her tribe. Q just got sent home. So you could then send it to her and save your ally, who you obviously want to meet up back with at a swap or a merge. It's like a win-win.
It's so, the Billie Eilish boomerang idol, like, the mechanic is so tough to make an informed, logical decision because there are just so many different variables at play. Because of course you're thinking about what you mentioned, Derek, which is like, okay, maybe actually I want to use it to save an ally and I shouldn't be so concerned about it coming back to me. Maybe I want to give it to somebody. If I'm going to give it to somebody and I want it to bounce back to me, I have to make sure that they would be stupid enough to not pick up on the fact that they should play it. You know what I mean? And then, or it's like, do you send it to somebody? Do you use it as social capital more than the actual idol itself to be able to save someone? And I don't know, does Genevieve know that the people who receive it can't play it on other people?
Yes, it was in the rules.
Okay. All right, good. So at least she knows that. So, I mean, because if you didn't, then otherwise you're thinking like, oh, Stephanie will play it for me. And then like, actually she can't. She can only play it for herself. It's a really, once I started thinking about it, it's such a complicated, convoluted mechanic that does make it a little bit difficult to act, I guess, dynamically is the right way to describe it, because you can't really be, so logical.
Well, it is a dynamic advantage. So
dynamic. I know I voted for it.
That's what we voted
I know
for.
I did.
I loved it. It's dynamic AF. I believe that's what the exact text. I think also, though, you mentioned that technically speaking, if she gives the idol to Stephanie couldn't use it on her, doesn't necessarily stop Genevieve from holding on to it and claiming that she has an idol, and therefore you can't vote for me. Obviously, that spends the risk of, ironically enough, you getting voted out with a Billie Eilish boomerang idol in your pocket. But it could be a way to make a bluff happen. Though, again, the only idols we've seen so far this season have been the BEBIs. And so maybe people would just make that assumption. But now that maybe they're all expended, now we'll go back to like regular idols.
I have a logistical question. If, let's say she gives it to Rizzo. Let's say Rizzo gives the idol to Suri, and then Rizzo gets voted out. Does it still go back to Genevieve?
Oh, that's wild. Imagine like Suri wakes up, she's like, where'd the idol go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if she gives it? She gives it to Rizzo. Rizzo gives it to Suri. Suri gets voted out. Does it boomerang to Genevieve?
Does the boomerang back to the boomerang?
Yeah, no, I think I think it's just out of the game. It'd be fun if it came back to Rizzo, but I think specifically if the idol has to be voted out with the person it was gifted to. Like, it essentially is a non-transferable idol, and that it can't be played on someone else. It can certainly be used as like a prop.
Held.
I think that sort of is the gray area. But if someone's like, if Cerise said, I want to use this idol on myself, they would say, no, you're not allowed to because Rizzo gave it to you. But yeah, otherwise in the circumstance where Suri gets voted out with it, God, that would be the best and worst of all possible worlds, right? That it just gets completely neutralized, completely defanged, and then they just sort of throw their hands in the air and say, okay, let's just put regular idols in. Okay, fine. You outsmarted us.
You asked for these dynamic advantages. Look what you did.
You've done, fans. That's so true. Okie dokie. So we have prepared our game/activity for today. Obviously, Derek, knowing you are going to be here. So we have prepared our buff or snuff for Survivor 50. So we are talking about different looks that the castaways have brought. Now, obviously, I would be remiss. We're not going to specifically talk about Camilla's look, but I could not get over, as you had mentioned earlier, Christian with his dynamic gesturing behind Ozzy. And I just love this screenshot so much. And I like the idea that he's judging Camilla's little gnome.
But one thing I've also been loving about Christian, besides just, the pure essence of who he is that he's slowly turning into like a Cro-Magnon. Like, look at the hair, look at the beard. In this picture, look at like the furrowed brow. I feel like I saw this bust in my anthropology class.
The jutting forward of the mouth mandible region. Yep. Absolutely.
Survivor really changes you.
It really does. All right. Well, speaking of the man of the hour, let's talk about Christian and his whole ensemble. So obviously we got to talk about the binary shirt, but I think you pair it also with his classic professor. It's only missing the tweed patches on the elbows. But Mike, what do you think of Christian's looks this season?
So what's interesting is that when I went to go visit these camps back when I was on set for Survivor 50, I actually got to witness Christian giving an entire TED from Survivor Thailand talk about the meaning of these shirts, that they are the binary symbols for 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, and he talked through, and Ozzy's like, I always wondered what that meant. And then Christian proceeded to go off onto entire Shillingwa, where he described what binary was and how it worked. I was obsessed with Suri's face, where she was just smiling and nodding, but had absolutely no idea what was going on, nor necessarily cared to. So that holds a special place in my heart. I think it's very fun to, obviously, robots play a huge part in this man's life, who's behaving as an animatronic in and of himself. And so to be able to have that illustrated in so many ways is great. But yeah, I love the formal look too. I mean, I would say formal look, but I believe this is also the look he wore when he shit his pants as well. So it really is a jacket for all occasions. So I have no choice but to buff it here.
Derek, what do you think?
I don't know if he planned it or not, but the buff just goes so well with the shirt. Like, it ties the whole ensemble together. And then obviously the jacket like fits him so well. I think Christian gets island hot. I think he does.
Yeah. Watching, because when I looked through the past 4 episodes for looks, and looking at him comparing episode 1 to episode 4, it's like the beard comes in. Maybe it's the more rugged look, certainly
Mhm.
more attractive. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna buff this as well. I love it so much. I was the little kid who also had like a nerdy binary shirt. It was like 10 types of people are gonna get this joke or whatever. It's like 10 types of people who understand this joke, those who do and those who don't, or something like
Oh,
that.
that's funny.
Yeah, because it's 2. So anyway, whatever. I totally get it. I vibe with it. I think he looks great. I love this still of him at Tribal Council. So yeah, I'm buffing it. It's a great look.
I can see why he was on White Lotus.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, this is island chic.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, our next look, we're sticking with the same starting tribe. We have to talk about Rick Devens. So we're continuing in sort of this business casual pipeline, which I do see a lot of people, like there's always one person who's wearing like a suit jacket, but I feel like Rick Devens has really leaned into this with his, the sweater with the button-up shirt and the tie. And now there was a look at Tribal Council where he's loosening up a little bit, man. Like I feel like he's one step away from tying it around his head, tying the tie around his head.
He's here for a good time. He's a party animal.
Heyo.
Yeah, he's my Survivor. Hear me out. I really,
Oh,
I mean, look at him
stick
at
it
this.
in the cake.
Exactly. No, we should do that. I'll bring a cake next time. We could put in I'll put in like chicken or something. No, he looks like he's in like a Jurassic Park movie where like
yes,
halfway through they just start like losing some layers and like they're
Yes.
dirty and it's like, oh wow, like he's giving action movie star. So I'm giving him a buff.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, yeah,
what do you think?
And I feel like the dynamic that it presents, it kind of reminds me of like those early episodes of Brooklyn Nine-Nine when Andy Samberg's character was forced to wear a tie, and so he like would do anything but essentially follow the rules. Like Rick's like, all right, I have to wear a tie to this thing? Great, but it's going to be nowhere near the nape of my neck whatsoever. Try to show like, listen, I may dress up for the occasion, but let it be known, I'm a cool player. I can definitely loosen up a little bit. Look at this tie. This knot is barely together, but my voting patterns are. So this really implies what Rick is trying to get across in this game, perhaps akin to his preseason perception. It is trying, I think, a little too hard, but it also kind of reminds me of like a look you would see on an Ashley Simpson album cover in the year 2005. Of like the loose tie with the button-down shirt. And so I kind of got to go for the throwback aesthetic here and give it a buff as well.
That's an insane statement, Mike. That was insane. You're crazy for that.
Yeah, it's Rick Devens, nothing but a t-shirt on. I'm a fan of the business casual look. I think also because they're not going to give them their swimsuits and we're going to go for this like they were actually shipwrecked look. Like there's nothing more drastic in the change of going from someone wearing a sweater or a sweater vest to like being covered in dirt with your tie like half loose. So I'm gonna buff this one as well.
I do think we should see better knots for the tie. I want to see like a different, give me a half Windsor. Should that be the signal, actually? Of like, hey, Christian, if we're voting Emily tonight, it'll be, the square knot. If we're voting for Ozzy, it'll be the full Windsor.
But like, you don't want to like show everyone that you're really great at knots because like sometimes you have to untie them in challenges. So you don't want to like come off like a threat.
Oh, that's fun. And that can also be a great way to broker a relationship of like, Joe, can you tie my tie for me?
Oh, you can see how good people are though at tying knots.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think you could hide an idol in that tie?
Oh yeah.
Ooh, a tiny one. Yeah. In the and you know how like they've got the little like pockety thing sometimes like in the back.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's an opportunity for that. Tie it up in there. Oh, or even in the collar of his shirt, like up in the back.
I mean that's what happened. Kelly Kim hit an idol infamously in her hair bun. So I feel like Rick could try to like, yeah, it's my mic pack. That's the big ass bulge on the back of my neck. Don't worry about it.
Rupert walks by. That tie's looking a little bit heavier than usual.
Got a rock in there. Okay. So I want to talk about this. I noticed at the Zac Brown concert where Tiffany was tapping her knockoff Crocs. Unclear if these are real or not, but she is. I went back and I did look at her cast photo. She's wearing them there as well. So this is supposed to be the featured item, I guess, in these photos is supposed to be her Crocs, again, unclear if real or not, adorned with, what are those things called? The things that you put in them.
Oh,
Don't they have names?
gibbets.
Giblets. Anyway, so the the giblets, you put those in there and then it gives her like a little bit more flair. I just think these are super good. They're also very practical, pretty much the opposite of the Rick Devens business casual look.
I kind of think so to a certain extent. And listen, I'm not a Croc guy personally, so maybe I'm talking out of my behind as I usually do. But does it not feel like you're going to be wearing 2 grade A sponges on your feet? Considering how much moisture exists out there on the island, I feel like the first time it rains, these things are basically ruined. And maybe it's like in for a penny, in for a pound. I also feel like with especially all the holes involved, and maybe she's trying to get the gibbets here to plug up as many as possible. Like how much detritus is getting in there? Obviously, the goal in wearing shoes is to not have your foot step on anything sharp or dangerous. And so there's a chance that stuff can sneak in there. And it's weird because I obviously cover Australian Survivor and they are crocked out the wazoo. In fact, there was even a guy named Croc on a few years ago. That's how obsessed they are with the footwear. So I don't know, though. And I'm sure people can tell me I'm wrong, especially former players. But I just feel like from a practicality perspective, I have to push back against this, Liana. I have to snuff this.
It's a snuff. Who was it that tried to vote someone out because of their shoes, their water shoes?
Oh, no, it was the final tribal council of Survivor Fiji.
Okay,
he was talking to Cassandra and said, show me your water shoes, as if to like demonstrate that like Cassandra's never worked a day in her life because her water shoes don't look that worn in. And Lacey says those are the worst effing water shoes I've ever seen in my life. It was, just really on the ayahuasca trip that was Lacey Linares and the Survivor Fiji experience. But I think that was the line of logic she was trying to use.
See, I never understood that argument until I saw these shoes. And I would bring if Tiffany were to make Final Tribal, I would say, can you please show us your Crocs, ma'am? Because what was the thought process here? Clearly you weren't prepared for Survivor if you brought these. So should we vote for her to win? I would pull Lacey, unfortunately.
Yeah, can we trust the judgment of a woman?
Yeah.
That's so funny. I think I'll be the lone defender here. I'm gonna buff these as someone who has owned this. Like I've had my Crocs, and maybe this is embarrassing, and I should never say this out loud. I've had Crocs since high school, and I have had this same pair since high school. They have lasted incredibly well.
How many microbes are in that thing?
They're just you can just wash them, like and then they just dry. Like they're not sponges. They're like they don't really hold on to water per se. Plus, you can put them in sport mode. You love a good sport mode.
Do you think when Tiffany had to go to challenges that she just changed the strap to put it on the back of her foot?
Oh, absolutely.
I certainly hope
absolutely.
So. I love that she could personalize it, bling it out. I love that it matches some of her other sort of pinks and purpley outfits. So for me, personally, it's a buff, but I hear the arguments and I can see where you guys are coming from.
Yeah, who would have thought Tiffany foreshadowed her edit with her choice of footwear?
Oh my God, poor thing.
Yeah.
Zach Brown is more professional than her.
I know. And she was on that reward.
27 seconds of confessionals in 4 episodes.
What do you make of the logic that people are throwing out there that the reason why Tiffany was not shown much in this episode is because she was like the lone person not to cry at Zach Brown serenading them?
They had to shame her. You didn't give us the TV we wanted, so say goodbye to your edit.
Maybe that's why she did look the least enthused, I would say, at the reward. So maybe there is some
okay, so if you guys were like forced to go to this, Zach, would you play ball, or do you think you'd pull like a Tiffany? Do you think you'd be like, okay, whatever?
Oh, I would, and then some. Like, I would be getting up and harmonizing with him. I would try to like start a slow dance. I'd be like, come here, Chrissy. I'll sweep you off your feet. Like, because that's the other thing too. That's what I love about Coach is that him saying, this is one of the best rewards from Survivor history, from the man that we saw uproariously laugh at getting an exclusive screening of Jack and Jill. He knows the game. He knows what he has to do. He has to sell the product. And so it's like, we all know what we're here to do. Yeah, it's fun to be the Sophie at that reward and like not react whatsoever. But if I'm there, like I might as well be there to just have a good time. And I don't know, maybe annoy Zach Brown a little bit of like, hey man, stop doing that. Stop. Just let me jam. Okay. You don't need to get in here.
Yeah, you got to find the joy even in those absurd moments. Or I think, as Coach said, it's another day in paradise. as Phil Collins said, as Coach said, we're getting into a Wayne Brady, Michael Scott situation. But anyway, yeah.
Do you think there's a non-zero chance that Coach went up to Zach Brown and is like, you mind if I noodle a little bit on that thing?
I'd like to play for you one of my songs.
Exactly. Anyway, here's Wonderwall. Like, how long were they there for? Like, was it an extended? Because we don't see them again for the rest of the episode. If they stayed all day,
they're still there. They're still there
to this day.
Yeah, they never left.
They're still out there.
Zach Brown's still there.
This turned into the Fire Fest real quick once the ocean ran out of fish.
That's right. Okay, let's move. Let's move on to. I didn't realize how many solid red items of clothing Rizzo owned until I was paying more attention. So the first time I noticed it was during the challenge in this episode, which is where this first still comes from. He is wearing his red shorts, his red socks, and his red tennis shoes. And then in the, I believe it was the talent show when he's doing his Mickey Mouse impression, not only he has a long sleeve red shirt as well. This man is going for monochromatic realness.
Do you guys remember? I mean, maybe not endurance. The like.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Survivor.
We'll see a contestant from it very soon. I think if I'm scrolling through Liana's slideshow.
This is like they used to have to wear like the same color everything. This is giving, and like he looks a little bit on the younger side, so this could be like an endurance still to me.
That's the thing for me is that it's giving so much for me. Late 90s, early 2000s cartoon character where it costs too much money to hire the Korean animators to draw different outfits on them every episode. So it's like, all right, Rizzo's the red guy. He's just wearing solid red for 163 episodes of Rizzo Velovic's Funhouse. And so he's rocking it. I love it. I mean, what's also very fun about this is that I know that their cast photos and like their marooning outfits, Colby told me actually, had to be like loosely inspired by what they wore on their season and what they're known for. Everyone else has largely ditched that concept, except for Rizzo, who I'm pretty sure only brought red stuff to the island. Listen, the man only had 10 days in between seasons. He was a little addled. Maybe he just only remembered the word red and just grabbed as much as he could and threw it into a burlap sack and went back out to Fiji. But I'm just intrigued to see how many more red items he has because, talk about from head to toe. This man is a walking red flag.
Not the red flag. I'm going to give him a buff because I love a person that can commit to a bit. And Rizzo is the king of committing to a bit. So I have to appreciate the hustle.
The other funny thing that Rizzo said in this episode was it was when he found his boomerang idol in his bag, but he was like, I was going for a wardrobe change. And to me, there's just something so fun. I was like, why did you call it a wardrobe change?
His other red shirt he had to put on.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know why he had to so it's really hot in Fiji. So your boy got to change his top. It's like, I don't know if we needed that entire prologue, Rizzo.
But I think there's also a difference between saying it's I need to go change my clothes versus I'm doing a wardrobe change. Like, yes, I understand you're on TV, but like we're trying to have a semblance of like you're a normal human being just out there. It's giving the same as the McDonald's CEO being like, this product is call it a burger boy. Call it food.
Zach Brown concert is the best thing I have ever. No, if he's gonna do the whole wardrobe change, he needed to commit like Jake O'Kane. I needed that type of commitment. I needed that type of like performance, and we just got a little bit of nothing. So
you know what? Actually, Rizzo should fully commit to the part where no sunscreen, be entirely red. The face, the hands, the legs, just be sunburnt. Yes, pain is beauty, and that would be a beautiful look if you were walking around looking like the Survivor 50 lobster.
Monochromatic realness. I love it.
From head to toe. Okay, so the next outfit that we're going to talk about is more a specific pair of pants, which, by the way, the upper corner, I did pull Teeny's pants
the
for
scarecrow
reference.
Pants.
The scarecrow pants for reference. In my head, these looked much more similar. And of course, I'm talking about Jonathan's patchwork pants from this season. Now, these, I think maybe I think it's the elastic at the ankles that's also like not sitting right with me. There's just something off about these pants that I don't like.
I don't love, maybe this is a bit of a hot take. I don't want you to walk into Survivor with baggy clothing. I want
right.
let me see the difference.
Oh,
you know,
that's a great point. I think that's why I like the business casual so much, because it's the biggest juxtaposition between someone in business. I'm like, yeah, this man already lived out. He was, in fact, Jonathan had been living out here for weeks before the marooning. Like that's the energy that this is giving me.
That's exactly it for me. As Teeny's pants were Scarecrow, this to me is giving like Paul Bunyan's mom couldn't buy him pants, so she took a quilt and fashioned something into it. That's what it looks like, more so with these very deliberately placed squares around his legs. It was like, okay, I turned this, you know how you sometimes like, turn quilts into a blanket by sewing them all around and stuffing them. This is more so, I'm going to turn them into like wearable fashion here. But like, so from, again, a perspective of, I want the pants to be looking like this on day 26, not on day -26. I'm going to have to snuff it.
I am going to pull a reference. Tori from Survivor 42 did these pants better.
Ooh.
Oh.
I do remember, I think we did buffer stuff for 42 that I did remember she wore like sort of the MC Hammer-esque like.
They were like checkered, like
pants,
blue.
Yeah.
Yes.
She outsold, but like I understand, like they want Jonathan to look like he has been in the woods for years, so like his clothes are just like falling off of him, like, he's like Tarzan. So I understand the branding, but I am gonna give it a snuff. I just feel like it's not practical. I'd be like wanting to like pull them up all the time. They look so like baggy.
I think also when I combine it with the shirt, I didn't realize how awful this neckline is. So yeah, this is an absolute snuff for me.
This is something you wear like at a slumber party.
What slumber party are you going to?
Yeah, it's like, oh, well, it's past 2 a.m. Let me slip into my overly large, extra large shirt that my dad gave me from, the 96 NBA finals and sleep in that. I also have a question. How do you feel about non-buff bandanas on Survivor? Like what Jonathan is wearing here. Like,
where does he usually wear his buff?
No, I'm talking about like he's wearing right now. He's not wearing a buff.
Where did he get this?
Yeah, he's
wearing. Is he allowed to have this?
We've seen, like, I remember Savannah in 49. Remember, she had the prison mic look where she wore a bandana on her head. So I think we have seen people wear bandanas that are not buffs, but it kind of feels a little bit like cheating on your spouse, Survivor.
I don't like it. I don't like it.
Like, you have in-house bandanas that you are giving people to wear. Why are you allowing them to bring in stuff from home?
I do have an RHAP buff. I almost wore, but I'm kind of glad I didn't now, because I don't like, I would have had to like slowly slide it off while you said that.
Well, I don't have a problem with the bandana inherently, but I do agree with you, Mike, that like I'm looking for, like, I actually didn't even notice. Like, I am like, well, looking for the logo. I'm like, where's the logo? Where in this, like, where is his actual buff? Is he wearing his buff?
It's around his left wrist, I think.
Oh, like over here somewhere? Okay. All right. Maybe. Confusing. What tribe? How will we know what tribe he's on?
The one that's winning.
Yeah, seriously.
Him dragging Camilla through the
so
water.
Good.
I love that. We were waiting for that to happen, right? Especially when when it was the two of them on a tribe together to start. I was like, okay, I cannot wait for this pairing to exist at some point. And so, listen, and leave it to Camilla as well. Like, she doesn't give an F. Like, she will absolutely be like, I don't care about my pride. Drag me through the water, king.
Exactly. Carry me.
Also, wait, speaking of Camilla, I put this on my social media, but I am low-key becoming obsessed with Camilla the Caller, because she has some very weird tics. Have y'all noticed this?
No.
Okay, so last episode, when, she's trying to figure out the pieces, it's almost like her teeth are chattering, which is so weird. There's a certain sound she's like, but put it here, put it here. Where like her brain is skipping a little bit, like an MP3 player from 2002, and so she just all of a sudden starts stuttering for whatever reason. But this time, I caught it, and it was even funnier, where she gets the word right. For some reason, they put a caller in this challenge, despite them never not doing it before. Of like, okay, you have to guess what the word is, and Camilla figures it out. And she goes, come. But it comes out like this. Come. I'm like, what? Is this me starting my car in the winter? Like, what is the sound coming out of her mouth right now?
That's funny. I'll have to look out for that if she's ever a caller again in a challenge.
Yeah, that and the Colby Yaz are now the backgrounds. Do you hear we got a little bit of it from Zach Brown?
He's just leaning in.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now we had a fashion show in episode 1. It was tough to get some of the looks because they were moving, but there was, I noticed, a reoccurrence of the Q skirt showing up not only in Q's look, but also in Angelina's look from this fashion show. So I thought that that was very interesting that we got to see the Q skirt brought back because I hadn't really seen it outside of this.
I will always give the Q skirt a buff because Q is single-handedly out there ending toxic masculinity, saying, yeah, I will wear a skirt. And guess what? I'm still a badass. So it is a total buff for me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the only thing I'm concerned about is it feels like Angelina's is less practical than Q's, right? The entire point of the Q skirt, I've watched that infomercial so many times, is that you don't need a fanny pack, you don't need drawers, according to Q. You just need the Q skirt where you can put all your stuff. From what I'm seeing with Angelina, and maybe this is a little bit lurid, I'm just seeing like a gaping open hole. And so it feels like if I'm putting stuff in there and I'm walking down this runway, everything, all my unmentionables are just falling out.
Well, if you wanted to really make it a performance, you could put like glitter or confetti in there, and then when you walk, it just like kind of like,
oh, what a reveal!
It's a
I
reveal.
love that. Yeah, well, that's so interesting because I was actually going to comment how I liked Angelina. She gave us the high-waisted version, which I think is a nice variation on the Q skirt, but I do see the lack of practicality. I think this is where the difference between if you're looking at what is high fashion, what is runway, versus what is your everyday sort of practical attire. And we have both of those demonstrated here.
What do you make of the Q jacket, no shirt look?
I mean, always a fan. I love this color purple too. It's so bright and vibrant.
I mean, Q looks iconic here. He would be my top buff of the week here.
Wow. Top buff.
Top buff of the week. I love it. Okay, our final look that we're going to talk about, which first I want to do a callback to buffer stuff from Survivor 47. Now, I just want to remind everybody where we were in time during Survivor 47. Genevieve, Queen Mother Genevieve, had not had any screen time up until when we had done buffer stuff. So it was hilarious that all of her outfits resembled Where's Waldo because we were trying to find Where's Genevieve with a red and white striped shirt, and she doing a perfect callback this season to the Where's Waldo look. So the looks on her left are the 2 white and red striped shirts that we saw from her in her original season. Now we have the elevated version, the more dynamic version of the shirt. Look, I can't say that I particularly like it. I think I would on its own give it a snuff, but I like it in the context of where she has been and the history of the Where's Waldo shirt.
No, I'm obsessed with this. I did not even notice this. This is my top buff of the week. Oh my God, this took completely by surprise. Like, not only the fact that this is a callback, but doing so many variations of it where it seems like they just contacted the person that made Jonathan's quilted pants and said like, hey, I got a bunch of scraps of white and like somewhat red striped fabric. Can you turn it into something? It is so asymmetric. I love all the different colors. I'm not even sure if the right side is considered red whatsoever, but it's like you said, Liana, it is like a perfect elevated take on a tried and true classic of the red and white striped shirt. I think this is the platonic ideal of like, if you're going to do a callback to your original season, what it should be of like, hey, people know me for this, and so I'm going to take it one step further. And so I am just so happy that you brought this to my eyes because unlike Waldo himself, now I can't not see it from here on out.
Listen, Mother Vive will never not slay because to me, this is giving that she had these 2 looks from her first season. And much like on Project Runway, where they have to like take something already made and like make it into something else, she took these 2 shirts and morphed them into this like amalgamation of all of her former selves from season 47. So it's like she's moving forward with a new version of herself, but she's still the same Mother Vive that we liked since day one. or day 4 when she finally got a confessional.
That
Yeah,
being said,
exactly.
if someone did wear this out in public, I would have so many questions
I'd
for
judge
them.
them. I would judge them.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, is that like I hate this shirt. Like
Or-
in isolation.
Actually, there is a fantastical ulterior motive for this shirt. If you really want to make people feel like they're going crazy, they're like, Aubrey, no, my shirt is red and white. What do you mean pink?
Yeah, because it's like it's
Do
pink.
you
it's
want to
peach,
sit
it's
down,
red,
Aubrey? Or you like, don't hunt for idols. I think you need to get your eyes checked out right now. There's something going on. Do you have an astigmatism?
You sure you're not colorblind?
Liana, what's your top buff?
Ooh, my top buff. Let me see. I need to look through everything. Oh, that's so difficult. I think I would probably give my top buff to Rick Devens. I think ultimately, like, I really do love the contrast in sort of the professional that shows up and then they go through this journey. It's such a good, like, vibe. But in and of itself, like, the look is fine. I think it's maybe more what it represents.
I'm just happy you didn't pick the Crocs. So
Yeah.
we're good.
I couldn't. That's a practical. That for me, that's a practical decision. But anyway, so yes, so that's what that's Buffer Snuff for this season so far. But we'll keep an eye out for any more creative looks.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would not be surprised if for Survivor 50 in particular, it's like any All-Star season, right? They're coming in, have a much higher budget for looks, and so we're going to be expecting much more high-quality garments out of all of them. But let us turn to our high-quality guest for the final segment of each and every week here on the B&B, where we give our guests the opportunity to highlight a charity or cause that is important to them. So, Derek, the spotlight is on you to spotlight something for the listeners. What would you like to plug?
I would love to plug the National Immigrant Justice Center. They're doing a lot of helping people and families who are being estranged because of ICE and the illegal things that they've been doing. So I think, especially right now, it's very scary here in the US. So helping each other and, reaching out to your neighbors, making sure your neighbors are good, making sure that everyone around you is good is more important now than ever. So that would be the cause that I would love to plug.
Yeah, incredibly well said. As were your insights over the course of this podcast. Is there anything else you want to say about this episode, the season so far, Survivor overall, while we have you?
I would just like to say, when it comes to Charlie versus Rizzo, I am Team Charlie. He is in my draft. So, we're hoping for the best. And when it comes to Genevieve versus Aubrey, I am begrudgingly Team Genevieve because I do love Aubrey, but I do have to be Team Genevieve for this one. So we'll have to see. I low-key am scared that Rizzo and Aubrey are gonna be the winners of those rivalries. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it's gonna come to a head for at least one of these pairs as soon as next week, because finally we are getting a double tribal council.
Imagine it's both of them next week.
That would be pretty. I mean, that would imply
wild.
That Vatu
manages,
which might be a little bit of a tough call considering how tough it was for them with that vote this week. But yeah, I'm really excited to see what's to come, because now we know, as exciting as Vatu has been, not to say that we necessarily be getting a break, but it's nice to bring in more people going to tribal. I think something like 11 people haven't been to tribal council yet this season, and so it'd be nice to have at least a handful of them go. I think as well to finally see the dynamics flesh themselves out one way or the other. I know people felt like, why haven't we started bringing in the double boots already? One, I think that they really wanted to immerse, especially people who have not played in a while, back in the game by being like, all right, let's give you some time to get adjusted to things. Then once you feel like you have your feet out from under you, then we'll really pick up the pace. The other thing is, too, I could also see it from a producer's perspective. Part of the reason why they put Edge of Extinction on Winners at War of all right, would we rather have one episode of Q or 3 episodes of Q? Those extra 2 episodes mean a world of difference. Not to say that I think people would necessarily tune out if their favorite wasn't on anymore, but it's a good way to guarantee that they get more airtime by just being on the island a bit more. That said, I would not be surprised if this is, one of a few rounds we'll get throughout the season where there's a double boot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, that totally makes sense. A lot of the other reality TV shows do that as well, especially when you have a star-studded cast that the beginning is a little bit lighter and then you kind of crank up the eliminations as you go.
Exactly. Derek, this was so much fun.
Yeah.
I still, again, as someone who's followed your work for a while now, still incredibly surreal for me to have you on our show. But this was an absolute delight, exceeded even the best expectations I had. So thank you. Your music changed my life, which I'm assuming is what Dee said to Zach Brown as well.
Please.
On the island, and also in retrospect. She was so sad that she
I
couldn't
know. I was
Zach
like, Mike,
Brown.
you better shed a tear then.
I'm trying. I'm tapping my Crocs right now, so I'm trimming channeling Tiffany fully. Well, of course, if people are especially watching this on YouTube, they won't have to go very far, especially if you are a Drag Race fan. I think what Derek does is absolute must-watch content. But what would you like to tell people about what you're doing out there on the internet?
I talk about the production decisions, the behind the scenes, sometimes the riggery of RuPaul's Drag Race on my channel, TheDragDetective. And I also have a spin-off little channel called Drag Duel, where we have a drag competition with drag queens, drag things, drag kings all around the world. So we're showing and telling the stories of queer artists from Russia to Croatia to Canada, from everywhere. So but also I just want to say, Mike, you are an icon. Liana, you're an icon. I love watching you both. I've been watching RHAP for so long, so to finally be here is like so surreal. So thank you both.
Well, the appreciation is so mutual.
Yes.
I'm curious, which Drag Race alum would you want to see on Survivor the most?
Ooh.
Well, okay,
even if they don't want to necessarily be on it.
Are you asking like who would do the best or who would make the best television, like as a Survivor contestant?
Porque no los dos.
I think Monet would be really fun. We know she's a fan. I think that she would actually do pretty well. I would love to see Thorgy Thor on because it would be absolutely insane.
Yes.
She would cause havoc. She would cause mayhem. She'd be amazing TV, and she'd be out in episode 2.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
It's art.
I mean, yeah, I think that's Thorgy in a nutshell. I think she would absolutely have Jeff Probst in a tizzy. He would have no idea what to do with her. So
she would find an idol and be like, "Woo! What do I do with this now?"
Whoa.
and,
Yeah.
and they just like huck it at Jeff when she wants to play. Like, I'm not going over there.
No, literally.
Ew,
You want me to
gross.
get up from my seat and come to you?
Oh my god! All right,
Amazing.
putting that out there into the universe.
Yes.
But really,
Yes.
check out what Derek's doing. It is so much fun. So thank you so much for coming on, sharing your thoughts about this season so far. Of course, you can check out everything Liana and I are doing with the PAL, with Australian Survivor, with Jury Duty over here on RHAP. But next week we will be back at it as we will say goodbye to 2 more people here. I'm very intrigued to see what's going to happen with Vatu in the wake of Mike's departure, considering that, again, half the tribe was left out of this decision. I'm very excited to see at least one of the other 2 tribes go to tribal council and see if this rivalry is going to come to the forefront or if there's going to be someone else random who will crush our hearts and dreams by being eliminated. No matter what the case, we'll be back here bringing you all the fun and games around what has been a very fun season so far. That's going to do it for this week's episode of the B&B. Special thanks to everyone behind the scenes at RHAP for packaging this podcast for your eyes and ears. And Will from America, who puts Zach Brown to shame with his incredible theme song. I would sit and listen to Will serenade me at the sanctuary, and I would shed many tears for that man. That is for sure. Liana and I will be back next week covering episode 5 of Survivor 50. Until then, everybody, we'll check you out at your next stay.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.